All right, y'all. You know what time it is. It is time for the after party. Welcome to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast live Q&A with your host, Sonia Jones of GIP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And what we've been doing with our podcast is we have been changing the cadence up a little bit. So instead of doing first we were doing weekly podcast, and then we started doing bi-weekly podcast, and then we said, you know what, we're gonna give full throttle with our content and all that good stuff. So we had to go back and say, hey, we're gonna start doing stuff every week. But we changed it up a little bit. So shout out to our producer Ray. She was like, well, what if you do a podcast episode and then the week after y'all do like a live Q&A to recap the episode? I was like, aha, like come to America. And so that's what we've been doing. And it has been going very, very well. Right. And it also gives me some insight on the type of topics and stuff that y'all like to talk about. So I was telling Victoria when we had our initial conversation, because we met through the morning meetup. If y'all have not heard of the morning meetup, it's a great community to be in. It's led by David Shands, the co-host of the Social Proof podcast, and he is all things like podcast master, if you will. Great, great person, and great podcast host. He has him and Donnie, man, they'll get you all the way together in the podcast, like for real, for real. And let's not even talk about the hot seat. That last hot seat, I, I just put hashtag know your numbers. Like it's like, dude. Because I know, like last time Victoria and I, we was like, dude, you know what? Next time, dude, why do you even get on the hot seat and come up there and not have your numbers? Like, you know, he gonna ask. Right. Go on and unmute, Victoria. You can unmute.
Oh, I'm just agreeing with you. And it was kind of what we were talking about in the podcast too, just data,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
financial statements.
All day.
I would never get on a hot seat without knowing that.
Mm-mm. Now to go and print them things out. Have a manila folder, if you will.
Right.
Like I got my numbers right here. Right. And so, yeah, and to truth be told, especially when we're talking about, bookkeeping, things like that, regardless if you're trying to reduce your tax liability or if you're trying to get funding, whether it's a grant or a loan, you
Mhm.
cannot run from bookkeeping. It is going to be the heartbeat and the essence of your entire business, being, right? So the mission of GIP is to empower entrepreneurs. That means small businesses and nonprofits, right? Because nonprofits are they still considered social enterprises, right? Yeah,
Um, Eventually, yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're here to help y'all know your numbers, right? And to get the funding that you deserve. Every business that is out here, doing the assignment that God has given you,
Mhm.
you deserve some resources and some provision,
Right.
right? And so we're here as co-laborers to help you with that. So that's the essence of what we're doing here tonight. So if you have not had the privilege of listening to episode 47 with Victoria and I, um, dude, listen to it, right? Because it is fire. It is very, very fire, right? So with that being said, if you haven't also subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that. Put your business information in the chat. It's very interactive tonight. It's very interactive. So just go on and just do all the things because I want to make sure that you're able to, shoot your shot as well. So the whole format of tonight is to kind of recap some of the things that Victoria and I talked about in the podcast episode. And so we're going to cover like most of the commonly asked questions when it comes to grants and things like that. And then also, if you have any other specific questions, put those questions in the chat. So I'll definitely be on duty checking the chat box and all that good stuff. Right. So Victoria, let's start off just so for those who have not had a chance to listen to the episode, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and DNV Consulting.
Of course. So my name is Victoria Ravenell, and essentially I help community-based organizations obtain funding through grant writing, grant management, and program development services. And when I say community-based organizations, when I think of an organization, I think of a nonprofit and a small business, but community-based in a sense of whatever you are doing within your small business or your nonprofit organization is community based, and that's who I work with. um, I see somebody in here said they can't get audio.
Yeah. So April, you got two options. Either come out and come back in, or if you need to, I can put, I guess, the info to connect by phone, if that helps. So hold on 1 second there, love bug. 1 second. See if I can get that together here. Invite, copy the full invitation. So I'm apologizing in advance because it's gonna be like boom, all in the chat. Let me see. Let's see if it did it give you the phone numbers and all that? No, it didn't give that. So hold tight. I might have to do it another way. But come out and come back in April if you can. That might be the easiest way.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the grant live Q&A. So like I said, we already kind of got an inkling of what y'all gonna ask. So that's what we gonna start with that first. So first of all, so what is a grant? Right? And so I'm gonna give my definition from grants.gov, but Victoria, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the Kobe if you need to do that. So when I'm telling, and I think the perspectives are gonna be very good because I'm coming primarily for speaking for like for profits. And Victoria is coming from nonprofits, but don't get it twisted because she still is all things the grant writer. That's why she is here. So it's good for y'all to hear these different perspectives as well. So the definition of a grant is a way the government funds your ideas, right? So that funding source can not only be the government, most cases it is, but especially now in today's climate, right? Foundations are also going to be, and corporations are going to be funding sources as well. So I think just recently, like Verizon just came back with the Digital Ready grant,
Mm.
right? So did Verizon, famous names. Oh, April, girl, we hear you, boo. I'm gonna put you on mute a little bit because a little fuzz.
Oh, but that means she might be able to hear now. Yeah.
Yeah, we got you, baby. That's
Good.
what I'm talking about. Right. So a grant is a way the government funds your ideas and projects to provide public services, right? So you're solving a problem. And two, to stimulate the economy. So kind of like it takes money to make money, right? So say for example, like one of the grants that GIP just recently submitted was for the state of Tennessee. It's called an innovation grant, right? And so the problem that we were solving is there's so many entrepreneurs that don't have a trusted financial accountant. 70% of entrepreneurs that don't have an accountant. And of the 70%, 64% have said, like, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing. Right. And so because of that, we have like folks with the high tax bills, and just have gotten themselves in a lot of challenging situations to where by the time they get to us, it can be pricey, right? So how we try to solve that is to meet the entrepreneurs where they are rather through like technical assistance programs. As soon as you start up, you need to have access to, a financial expert like a bookkeeper or an accountant, right? And so what we proposed to the state was to have a bookkeeping entrepreneur apprenticeship program, right? So in
Wonderful.
that case, right, we're providing a public service,
Mhm.
right? And then it's also stimulating the economy in two ways because we're training people to become bookkeepers, right? And exposing them to a career they probably weren't even thinking about, right? That pays, on average more than, minimum wage or even like your area median wage. And then also it's helping save money for entrepreneurs if they got somebody that can help them, track their finances. So just to kind of give you, kind of an idea of how, grants work. So Victoria, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, so when we think about foundation grants is more so not to stimulate the economy, but just increase impact in the area that the funder wants increase in impact.
Mhm.
And a good example, or no, a good difference between government and foundation is that foundation is usually private, meaning there are less people or organizations that are going to apply to that particular grant. So they're usually easier to get. But when you think about government grants, you can even talk about government contracts, like they said, to stimulate the economy because
Right.
the government cannot purchase products, they cannot purchase services on their own. They
Right.
always have to ask somebody like us to provide it to them. So it is a way to stimulate the economy when you're thinking about a government grant.
Exactly. All right. So I hope that that answered some of your questions right there. Right. And then the next thing I wanted, we talked about too was compliance. Right. And so like I said, I cheated because this was from another presentation. I
That's
cheated.
not cheating though. That's just providing the right information. Yeah.
That's right. See, this Victoria always hyping me up. That's what I'm talking about. So especially because another question that we get asked a lot is, I'm a startup. I don't even know if grants are even, for me as a startup or for me in a particular type of industry, right? My reply is you have not because you ask not. But you have to be very particular though when you're looking at these grants. You just can't apply to any and everything, right? I always tell folks you got to read the fine print, you got to read the eligibility requirements, right? Because grants can be restricted by your area, it can be restricted by industry. Now, some grants require you to have already made a particular amount of gross revenue, and especially with those, they're going to ask you to prove it with some good old
Right.
fashioned tax returns, right? And some P&Ls. Hallelujah. Right. So when it comes to your compliance, just a couple of things for y'all to kind of be thinking about, but you should have most of these anyway, right? Your EIN, your business checking account. Please know if you are saying that you are a business and you're applying for this grant, and if you get that grant, they are not going to deposit that money into your personal checking account. You just go,
Right.
they are not going to do that. You got to have a business license because you have to show, right, that you are actively doing business in your respective state. Okay. Articles of organization. So, especially if you are a single member LLC or a corporation, a nonprofit to a certain extent, you do have to have, documentation there,
Right.
with registered with your respective Secretary of State. So you definitely have to have that, and it has to be updated because you got to renew that thing annually, baby. Right?
Mhm.
And then especially with the nonprofits part, the most important part, the 501(c)(3), right? Anything you want to add there,
I
Victoria?
would venture off to say, because I know you mentioned startup businesses. When you're talking about startup anything, um, truth be told, it will be harder to get grants. So my biggest question that I always receive is, should I start with grants when I'm a startup organization? And I would say I would first start with crowdfunding, family and friends funding is what, a lot of people call it, just to get you started. And then looking into grants once you have some type of impact. If
Mhm.
you're a business, it could be foot traffic. How many
Right.
people are coming to your site? How many people are interested in what you have? And how many people you're actually providing a service or product to. So if you don't have that yet, majority of grants are going to ask for that. They're going to say, well, if you don't have it, where are your projections? So do you have that full business plan if you don't have those items? And I know a lot of people say, oh, you don't need a business plan. If you're thinking about getting grants and you're a startup and you don't have any other funding, you're going to need something. And a business plan will kind of encompass all of the things that are listed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Right. So you definitely have to have some type of what I call like proof of concept.
Right.
Right. Because it's like Victoria said, folks don't want to put money. And part of that I sleep blame, the pandemic on because to a
Mhm.
certain extent, because, they would just,
PPP loan.
who it was, they would just pass money out. And folks didn't really have to prove themselves. Right. Until after the fact, then,
They're auditing.
you're right.
They're
Exactly.
still doing that now, y'all. So
Yeah, they still look. Yeah. Hey, big head. Right. So, and the next thing, just as far as like maintaining, your annual renewals and submissions. So if you're a sole proprietor, right? Your license, make sure that you have your license and your tax return. Those things you have to have done, especially after you've already been awarded the grant, right? But also just in preparation. If you stay ready, you got to get ready, right? When it comes to like your entities, your LLCs, your corporations, right? Make sure you have your annual report done and renewed every year, as well as your tax returns. And then the nonprofit, your annual report, your charitable solicitation, that's your state, requirement there. And then, of course, your 990, which is not necessarily a tax return because nonprofits don't file taxes, but it's your federal financial report that you have to submit to the IRS. Okay. Anything right there, Victoria?
And just to add, we were talking about grant reporting, and I know we just talked about government grants.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that are usually going to ask for some type of report. So whenever you're going for a government grant, you have to make sure you're able to maintain reporting prior to submitting it, because the reporting might be more extensive than getting the funding was in the first place. And government grants also somewhat sometimes, not all the times, run off of reimbursement. So you
Mhm.
have to have the money to spend before
Yeah.
they're able to reimburse you for the money that you spent. So it can be a little bit different when you're getting into that space too.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Your funds are gonna come right either directly, like boom, in the direct
Hmm.
deposit, or definitely with that reimbursement. I'll tell you now, especially from a bookkeeper standpoint, right? A lot of nonprofits assume, I would say nonprofits, just say businesses in general, a lot
Businesses,
of
yeah.
they assume that, all the grants just gonna be like bloop. And it's not like that at all. You got to have, the money first to spend it, especially like with the charter in the charter school world.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Most
the
all of those,
reimbursement.
they're
Mhm.
all gonna be reimbursement first.
Or you have some matching funds too. So they'll put up half of what project you're looking for, and you have to be able to support with statements showing that you
Mhm.
can support the other half of it. So it can, be a little different.
Exactly. And that's another reason why too, y'all, that it's just wise to have multiple revenue streams of revenue,
Hmm.
right? Because I hear that a lot too, especially with folks that here's a common thing that I hear a lot too. For profits that aren't, making a lot of money or need cash flow, they hear on, Beyonce and Al Gore's internet that I'm just gonna start a nonprofit. And when I
Yeah,
start a nonprofit, then the grant fairy gonna come and put some money, drop it at my door.
the grant fairy want to see what you're doing first
Grant,
before
grant,
they give you the money.
Grand Fairy said where they at though. That's what Grand Fairy saying. Right. And then here's my thing too, Victoria, when it comes to stuff like that. You ain't even keeping track of the for profit. So why are you trying to start a whole brand new entity?
Right.
You just making more trouble
It's
and more trouble for
expanding,
yourself.
your capacity. Yeah,
Right. Stretching
that
yourself thin. Stretching yourself thin. So if y'all got questions, I mean, we just over here, sitting on the porch talking over here. So if y'all got questions, put them in the chat. Okay. If you guys have not downloaded the 5 mistakes organizations make looking for grants, make sure that you download this. Um, and if you can't scan the QR code, you can definitely go to gipfinancials.com, go to the menu, click on grants, and then scroll down to the bottom. And you'll be able to access this ebook. And it's got some goodies in there on in the back of the book for you as well. So where to find grants? So these are just some of the resources on my side that I've actually enrolled in, subscribed to, things like that. So the U.S. Black Chamber is definitely a good one. Most of the like the larger grants with the U.S. Black Chamber and the Buy Black certification is going to be there. That's actually where I saw the famous Amos, the $50,000 grant there. The SBA. is going to be another one, especially with the SBA. They're broken up in regions, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So for those of us in the state of Tennessee, that's the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. Okay. Your local government's business department, right? So with the city of Memphis, we have a whole business department, the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance. Shelby County has a business office, right? And then also with the state of Tennessee. So make sure within your region that you're looking, for those resources. And then your local representatives email list, okay? Your council people, your commissioners, House representatives, and senators. For Tennessee folks, Steve Cohen, he dropping stuff every week. Steve Cohen dropping stuff every week. And if you are like, who are my folks? Now I'm testing myself. Councilwoman Rhonda Logan, County Commissioner Charlie Caswell, right? Get on their email addresses. If you go to the city or the county, they should have something where you can sign up for a newsletter or something like that, or follow them on social media because a lot of information is going to be there, and especially on LinkedIn.
Right.
Victoria, what you got?
Well, and I'm glad you said LinkedIn because you can literally just search the word grants and you'll just see a whole bunch of people posting about upcoming grant opportunities. But when we're talking about small business, I think you hit it on the nail, especially with that Buy Black grant list because they update it. You buy it one time, y'all, and they'll update it every single year. So I think I bought it last year and I just got the new update a couple days ago.
Okay.
So if you're a small business, that's going to be like the best place to start. It's fairly cheap too. And then if you're a nonprofit organization, I would say Grant Station, you have Funders Directory, you have your local, what, like I'm in Atlanta and we have like
Mhm.
a
Sure.
Greater Atlanta community organizations. So your local community organization will have grants for you. And then I don't want you to like knock trying out a grant writer to do grant research for you,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a rather low price, right, for them to look for those funding opportunities for you. Because if you go to any of these websites for a small business or for a nonprofit organization, you're going to get grant opportunities, but you're going to have to sift through the ones that apply to you. Whereas if you get a grant writer to just look up grant opportunities for you, and you just pay for that one time, even if you can't afford the grant writing service, they'll be able to look up the funding opportunities that align to you and provide you with a decent list. And all the grants on that list you're able to apply to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm gonna go back one slide. Um, because Cassandra asked me to go back for the ebook. And so while I'm going back, so Victoria, you brought up something too, where you were just mentioning like the different types of services, right? So a lot of folks assume that grant writers are genius, and y'all aren't genius, and y'all not magicians, right? So can you just inform everybody like what is, and make sure that I'm framing the question right, when you're before you invest in a grant writer,
Mhm.
like what things should businesses or nonprofits already have in place before they reach out to you, I guess just for the formal like grant writing service, and then we can talk about like the other services that you provide too outside of that.
Well, of course. I mean, I think we went over it as far as the documentation goes. Is the documentation one? Plus, do you already have your metrics? Now, you might not have looked at them, but do you know how many people have purchased from your business? Do you know how many people walk into your store? Do you know the amount of people that you've impacted already? I think grant writer also, if you're looking at somebody that does full service, can help you get to the point to where you can apply for grants. They can work with you to determine where you are as far as your grant readiness. They might have some information on how to get you there and get you through the process of grant writing. And Sonia, I saw somebody ask what the rate of a grant writer is. That truly depends. And I say that because some of them work off of a hourly pay. Like you think about a standard grant writer could be between 50 to 150 an hour upwards. Some grant writers do a fixed rate or a flat fee. I work off of a flat fee. And it just depends on how many grants you would like written. If it's a basic foundation grant, it could be between like 300 to 350. But what you're thinking about is the end goal, right? So I would never, this kind of puts it together.
Mm,
Because you asked what would make somebody ready, and I would say if you're at the point to where you can afford the service. And I say that to say I would not use a grant writer um, if you can only afford to pay for them to write one grant.
mm.
Because a grant writer is to put you in position.
Oh, come on,
In
GIP.
order to do that with grants, there is power in numbers. So without a grant writer, you're statistically speaking, you would receive about 10% of the grants you put in. So when you think about putting in 10 grants, you might get one back. And then on the other end, if you do use a grant writer, you can ask them what their percentage rate is. And if it's around 40 to 60%, and 60% is high, you all. So if it's around, I would say 40%, then for every 10 they put in, statistically speaking, they get four of them.
Mhm.
So you would be ready for a grant writer when you're able to afford to receive the service more than one time.
Mhm.
And then as far as rate, it varies truly, but I would say around $300 for myself to write a grant. And then, of course, as far as the flat fee goes, the more grants you're able to get written, then we would work more so off of a monthly retainer.
Got you. Got you. And especially, so I hope that you guys heard that. So that's why we got the grant writer on. So y'all can hear it straight from her, right? Because there's a lot of myths, right? It's just flat out incorrect information going on out there, and there are folks out here that are mad about
They
I
pay
hired a
for the
grant
service.
writer and they ain't do nothing for me. But you ain't set yourself up. First of all, you probably weren't even in the proper, place in your business to even invest that much in a grant writer.
Right. And I think the biggest thing is, and a grant writer should tell you that you're not ready. I think the biggest thing is some people just take money. So consultation is for you and for me. And if I feel like you're needing one grant written, and the difference might be that you're able to write all five of them and you just need help with one because of capacity. That's different.
Mhm.
But if you're a startup, you're looking for grants, you can afford one. I would have to say that maybe come back in a few months when you're ready to put in more money to be able to have more grants written, mainly because just writing one grant, statistically speaking, it would just be so hard to get.
Mhm.
I don't want you to put in money and not receive any return. Although grants are not guaranteed.
Absolutely. Say that one more time. Say it again.
Grants are not guaranteed. So think of a grant as a piece of a pie. You're supposed to have multiple sources of income. So I would say like crowdfunding. You can get some people if you're a nonprofit, even if you're a small business, in-kind donations to cover some of the programs or events that you have going on. There are so many things. Even when thinking about corporate sponsorships, if you're a startup nonprofit, it might be a little bit easier to go to a community foundation or a community bank
Mhm.
because sometimes they'll give you like 350 or $500 for a particular program you have going on in their community. So it's ways to start, but I would say that if you want a grant writer, have that consultation with them and they'll let you know about their rate. Um, and they should be upfront about it. And if not, you might not be looking at the right grant writer.
Yes, you heard that.
Oh no.
Yep, I'll tell you.
I hope it didn't sound like shade, y'all.
We're gonna call it what it is, because I mean, because a lot of what Victoria is talking about is kind of what we experienced too, because folks come to us mad because the tax person, didn't do them right, or maybe there was a bookkeeper that probably, overstated their capacity in a sense, right, and kind of made things worse, or at least not explaining, numbers and things like that. So when we have the opportunity to educate, we need to educate, right? So Victoria is educating y'all to make sure that you are saving your money and investing it wisely, right? So even like for us, like one of our services, we call it grant, or we call it funding assistance, meaning that we are not grant writers, but what we do, we go back and look at your P&L, your balance sheet, and help you get the financial narrative together when you're applying for funding, right? Because it has to make sense. You just
And
can't go
that's a
and
part of
say,
the piece, yeah.
right. Can't say like, I just need some money just because I need some money. Mm-mm. You gotta talk about how you gonna use that amount. Like you're gonna use it for staff. What type of staff? Why do you need, how do you know you need the staff? What do your numbers tell you that you need this level of capacity to invest in? And
Yeah,
then
that's an unrestricted grant when you're talking about
right.
staffing. Most
Right.
grants are restricted.
Yeah. Ooh, put a pin in there. We gotta talk about that too. And when you do that, and if you're applying for staff, how is that one position going to impact your business, right? So you have to think about all of that. But talk a little bit about restricted versus unrestricted there, Victoria.
Yeah, of course. So, an unrestricted grant is a grant you can use on anything within your organization. And a restricted grant is for a specific program. And when I say restricted in staff, it usually doesn't happen because when it's a restricted grant, usually they want to pay for just the program. So, if you're an organization for children, they're focused on children and impact, and less focused on your operational cost. But then, some founders are moving to unrestricted,
Mm.
and if you come across an unrestricted grant and it aligns with your organization, that is uh, a gem, and you should apply for it because an unrestricted grant can be used for anything. And when we say staff, you are staff too, so it can be used as part of your operational expenses.
Right, exactly. So like the Tennessee Score Grant that we just applied for last month, only like, especially with the state, they'll specifically let you know how much is allocated to what we call indirect costs, operating
Hmm.
expenses and stuff like that. So again, you got to make sure that you're reading these applications and reading the fine print on those. Yeah.
And Verizon's grant, just to put out there, I believe is
Mhm.
unrestricted. Whenever Comcast Rise comes back around, it's unrestricted.
Restricted.
You have your Main Street America, if you have a brick and mortar in a historical area, those are usually unrestricted. If you're applying for that particular thing, because
Mhm.
unrestricted and also aligned, right? But yeah, a good amount of for-profit businesses may be able to find grants, but also is grants are popular right now, so a lot of people will be applying to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. So April said this is very informative. So that was the point, child. That's why we're here. All right. And so some of the other grant resources, Hello Alice is another good one. Definitely between like, I know, well, let me start with Hello Alice. Hello Alice is not only deals with funding, but they've kind of grown into like a one-stop shop for all pretty much business resources and assistance. Victoria talked about the Comcast Rise grant. So GIP was honored to get that grant in 2023. And if
Oh,
y'all,
for my
if,
clients too, yeah. I said,
yeah.
I said this are unrestricted. We applying.
Man, the Comcast grant was out of this world, but we got money, we got
Hmm.
technology, we got coaching, we got like the LinkedIn learning access,
Right.
we got a whole lot of, cool things. But definitely that Hello Alice coaching, and we also got like commercials and stuff like that. It was cool. Um, but especially like with Hello Alice, not only are you getting funding resources, but they have some really good grant workshops on there as well. And the the folks who are doing the grant workshops is the actual Hello Alice grant department, right? So it's not just anybody that they just pulling off the street. The folks they hired the people and they know what they're talking about. All right. Hello Skip for me for for-profit businesses. This is probably my most favorite one so far because most for-profit businesses are asking like, why, where in the world do I go to even get these cotton picking grants, right? Hello Skip is definitely it's like it gives the format of like the Credit Karma, right, when it comes to funding. But the cool thing about Hello Skip is that they have a whole business profile. You can upload your business documents, and they have what they call a grant vault, where they have 10 questions, mostly like the most commonly asked questions amongst all grants, and
Right.
you can respond to them. They also have an AI enhancement where if you just want to put some on there and then they clean it up for you, all that good stuff. And then when you go and complete your profile, they will find the grants that you are more likely, qualify for, or have a good chance of getting. Right, again, because they're not guaranteed. When you click on the grant and say that I'm interested, they'll go ahead based off of what you answered in the grant vault. They'll go ahead and put those
Mhm.
answers in there for you. And then that's for free. But then if you do the paid tier, they'll automatically apply for those grants on your behalf. Yeah. So like Hello Skip right now is like it's I would consider that a good investment, especially for those of us that are like too, busy, to apply for grants. But definitely check out Hello Skip. Grants.gov again is a resource. Some of the small business nonprofits, and these are just some of the ones that GIP has personal relationships or business relationships with, like Webex South, the Black Chamber of Memphis, Tennessee Nonprofit Network. GIP is not a nonprofit, but we are a part of their consultant directory. And even if you're not a nonprofit, I would say just go on and get on the email list so you can see what's out there. You
Yeah,
know
and
what
start
I'm
talking
saying?
to them.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, a funder knows other funders in both
Mm-hmm.
for-profit and nonprofit entities. So, even if you can talk to a nonprofit funder, ask them if they know of any for-profit funders that they can connect you with.
Yes, absolutely. Connect to find them folks on LinkedIn, child,
Right.
all day long. Right. If you find a grant, and if they've got like I know like with the famous Amos grant, they show the folks that were over the grant. Find them folks on LinkedIn and connect with them. And then you can see like when they post, you can kind of get an inkling of like what their core values are and things like that. Like, come on.
They're looking for.
Yeah, be a whole detective out here. Right. And then you can
That speaks
definitely
to capacity. Sorry. I
right. No,
was just
go
thinking about
ahead.
that. That speaks to capacity. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the capacity to do it, that's why you get a grant writer because that's all they
Mm-hmm.
do on your behalf. They'll go to those meetings and sit in with those funders, especially if you get one on retainer for grant management because it's the
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
process through and then after as far as reporting. So
Absolutely.
that's taken off of your plate. But and also these resources, because are we all at the point to where we can afford a grant writer? If you're not, like, get on Hello Skip
Hmm.
and let it do some things for you.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, you can definitely follow us. Victoria, put your IG in there because every time when I'm sitting and I'm doom scrolling, I'm on my IG. When I start seeing grants, I start sharing them to the story
Right.
immediately. Right. And I
There's
even
so
have
many.
like, go ahead, what you about to say?
So I'm just saying, I'm agreeing. There's so many that you just all day you can just repost them.
All day long. And then another thing that I do too, y'all leverage your, the saving, capabilities on your social media things. Create you a little thing for grants or whatever. I
Mhm.
have one that's for prospective partners, right? Because not only am I looking for grants, but I'm also looking for the folks that constantly have these resources. So I can
Right.
constantly share them with y'all, right? So make sure that leveraging those saving capabilities. All right. And so when you're looking for grants, here are the things you need to keep on your radar. What are the eligibility requirements? Right? Um, Victoria mentioned something earlier about like one of the things that grant writers can do for you is sit in on meetings. Like depending on the organization, because I can think about two or three of them, like Camelback Ventures, the Famous Amos, and the New Schools Venture Fund. They always have like right as soon as they open the grant up, they're gonna have a webinar. They might even have office hours where they'll be available. You can, ask them questions about the application and stuff like that. Take advantage of those.
Do it because they'll remember, like they might not take anything from it, right? But then when they're going over the applications, they might remember your name.
Mm-hmm.
And that does something to the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is just to put you on the top of the list. Like we can't guarantee a grant to be won, but positioning is a big thing when it comes to grant writing. So you want to position yourself to be at the top.
Mm-hmm.
They should be having a conversation about you to see if you're able to get the grant, because of the work that you put in and because of how your grant proposal looks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you remember like when we were in school, and as soon as we were about to class was about to end, and you had that one person that always tried to ask questions, like, we can get out of this class, right? You need to be that person in the grant webinar, right? Make your presence known, just like Victoria said, so so you can, be on top of mind. So, it's always about that first impression, y'all.
Right.
Always, always. Next, how long is the grant commitment? Just because you got that money bloop, don't mean that, hey, how long do you have to, that program that you said you were going to
Might
run,
be 12 months
how long you have? Right. Because you still got to collect data
for 12 months.
for 12 months, pre, during, and post,
Hmm.
right? You got to be very aware of that. Next, what will you receive in exchange for your commitment? Are you gonna get some money, some munyon, as the young people say? You're gonna get some munyon, right? Some services. Like sometimes, like with Our Village United, the Her Pro Bono program, that nonprofit pays us to provide services and to, walk the founders through bookkeeping, right? You didn't have to pay for it. That's a grant. You get free services, right? So to be thinking about that, and also like free education. So are you like the Goldman Sachs, that program,
Hmm.
right? That's a great example of something like that. So be very clear and aware of what you're getting in exchange, for that commitment. Anything you want to add there, Victoria?
No, you hit it on the nail. I mean, I just really want y'all to know, and they say this upfront, that grant commitment,
Mm-hmm.
your reporting, what's your capacity like? What are they asking for as far as the grant commitment goes? Like, how much data do you have to report on?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
all a part of it.
Yep, absolutely. See, April said, will you send a copy of this meeting? Yes, we will definitely. We'll send a copy of the replay, and we're also going to post it on the YouTube channel as well. Yes, ma'am. And so, some of the money questions grantors may ask, right? You're welcome, April. One, why you need this money, right? Why you need it? Two, how you gonna use it,
Mhm.
right? Next, what percentage of this grant, right, will cover your project? And I say that because, especially for nonprofits, when you have multiple programs that are funded by different revenue sources, you got to be crystal clear about that, right, to avoid like double dipping and things like that. How will this investment impact your community? Right, Victoria talked about impact, and your customers, for profits, that's your community as well. They're gonna ask you about your gross revenue, especially for those grants where they want you to make over a certain amount, right? Or within a certain range. They will also ask you sometimes about your net profit. Gross is before expenses, net is after expenses. Because sometimes they want to know, are you really running a business? And what you spending your money on. Right? Sometimes they want to know, right? projected revenue. If you're a startup, sometimes you have to provide forecast, right? And then your program budget, right? A lot of times they'll ask you for that prior to, but sometimes they might ask you for it after the award. Just kind of depends. So Victoria, you got something to add?
Yeah, so one of the other questions,
Uh-oh.
oh, you,
Oh, my bad.
no, I thought it was me.
I'm very quick. It was me.
So one of the questions that I always see is how does your program align with our funding priorities? And usually they have like core values listed within their profile. So when you do apply, they're going to ask how does it align? And then what I see a lot of times, because I do review grants for government entities, right? So I might get a contract for the Department of Education in whatever state, and I'm looking at, like Sonia said, charter school applications. And I'll see they'll ask, how does your program align with our priorities? And wouldn't you know that they have their core values, and then within the wording, they don't list the core value, they just talk about it. If it
Mhm.
says we stand on I don't know, youth excellence, the same thing they say in their core values, I'm a say it in the wording. Like
Mhm.
if their wording is we help with homelessness, or we help with youth empowerment. That's one of our corporate principles, core priorities is youth empowerment. In the wording, even if we do youth mentoring, I'm gonna say we empower youth through mentoring. Like I'm gonna say exactly what they said because that's what they're looking for. And nowadays people utilize AI,
Here
and
we
they
go.
might be going through theirs using AI platforms, just like when you put in a application and you do a cover letter, they look for trigger words. A lot of
Mhm.
those apps have trigger words, like, and they're looking for certain words. And if you don't have those certain words, you don't get put on the pile of what they'll look at.
Mm. All right.
So
So I
exactly what they ask for is exactly what you say if your
Mhm.
organization aligns to that. And that's why you have to go for grants where your organization aligns because they'll know when you're putting fluff. They'll know when you're putting fluff in your um P&Ls, your projected revenue. They'll see the fluff because it doesn't cost that much. They
Right.
know because they probably put out for grant proposals before, so they know the type of money that it takes to do certain things.
Right. Meaning that if they're offering $100,000 grant, then you can't put $90,000 to the leader of the grant, the program. You can't do that. I've seen it.
Only a percentage.
Only a percentage, only a percentage. And let me also, since Victoria brought up AI, right? Use Chat GPT or whatever platform. Use it as a thinking buddy. Do not copy and paste, y'all. Please, please don't do that. Don't do that. Use it as a foundation, but you got to switch some things up, right?
Right.
Right. Make sure that you're doing that.
The chat
Go
GBT,
ahead.
even if you ask for it to talk in your voice, can sound robotic.
Mm-hmm.
And you do want to sound genuine in your applications too. And
Absolutely.
some like Comcast Rise, even when doing that application for my client, we more so focused on being genuine
Mm-hmm.
because they were looking for creatives,
Yeah.
people that were thinking outside of the box. So you never want to sound robotic in your responses. You want to sound like you're a person that's writing it, but you're writing it well.
Exactly. Exactly. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So a couple of tips here. So apply for grants again that support your business goals, right? Mission, vision, alignment. Be honest with yourself about your capacity to handle the grant commitment. Please be honest with yourself, right? Know your numbers. Can't stress that enough. You gotta know your numbers and make sure that you maintain documentation. Any other tips you want to add, Victoria?
I think that really sums it up, especially the capacity to handle the grant commitment. Yes, you need money to do what you do, right? But also think about the other side. Where should your focus be? Should your focus as a nonprofit be on getting money, or should it be assisting the people that you're getting the money for?
Mm,
So if that's what you want to focus on, you get somebody to help with the things that you cannot do.
that's right.
And if you can focus on grant writing, you get somebody to help with program development or maintaining your programs.
Exactly. And
And if
especially,
you can't do it, if I mean, if you're in the position to where you can't afford it, an intern can definitely do some grant research.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It can happen.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll just as an example, I'm working with a nonprofit now, that was awarded a state grant, but because of capacity, um, it was a five-figure grant, but because of capacity, they're only able to get reimbursed quarterly,
Mhm.
right? And they hadn't even, I think on that first quarter reimbursement, it was less than 10% that they had asked for. I was like, y'all, it's go time. What we doing? Right? So we had to go
Spend
in.
the money if you got it.
Right. So we had to go in there. I was like, I need your application. I need the budget. I need
Mhm.
all of it. I need to see what you submitted. Cause they were like, we don't even remember what we put on the budget. I'm like, bing, 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 bing. Right. So we had to go back and say, like, hey, here's all the stuff that you put in this budget. You need to go back and ask the state. One, can you amend the budget? Two,
Right.
can you go back and pull for
Sometimes
past
they
stuff?
can.
Yeah, you have not because you asked not, right?
Right.
So it's sometimes
The
you
worst
just
they gonna say is no, and what?
right.
Hey, what we didn't use last quarter, our budget it has increased, in quarter two.
Exactly. So that's why it's especially I know with this in this particular instance, uh in most cases, I'll say at all, it's commonplace to be proactive when you are doing your budgets, right? And I'm speaking from nonprofit space here. When you have your operating budget, program budget, already have that together, and you've already planned out what you're gonna do for the fiscal year. The
Right.
grant should be like, hey, how are we gonna be able to fill in, these gaps? If we said we were gonna pay for a communications person, right? If that particular state grant has an eligible expense for a communications person and you got a cap on the percentage of the salary, you better pay, use it, right?
Mhm.
That's how you have to be thinking about, those grants and
Use
stuff.
it or you lose it when it comes to state and government grants, especially if you're getting reimbursed. If you don't use the amount that you said in your application, say is a multi-year grant, they're going to decrease the amount because they're going to say you don't need it.
Right. Yep. We used to see that a lot too in charter schools with the Title One grants as
Mhm.
well. You got to be proactive.
We having workshops.
Got to all day.
Money
All day
flowing
long.
because you don't know what's going to happen the next year.
Right. So again, just like what Victoria said, you got to make sure that you're also thinking about the what we call the back end,
Hmm.
right? How you going to maintain the grant reporting and compliance and all that. You stick to the whatever your superpower is, and the rest of you need to probably, delegate and outsource,
Right.
right? Got you. All right. So as we're wrapping up, if y'all got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Or if you want to raise your hand, you can. I'm gonna have to change my view so I can see y'all. If that's the case. I can't see y'all. But I hope this has been enlightening. Normally we be on for 30 minutes, so we've been on here for a while. I just want you to know that because we talking about grants,
We
that's why.
talking. That's why,
Talking about
yeah.
grants. Right. So what I did today for y'all, I went in YouTube on our YouTube channel and put all the grant stuff in a playlist for y'all. So make sure you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you'll see the playlist, all things grants, right? And you can just play it to your heart's content. All right. Get you a little notebook and take some notes. Right. So I want to make sure that these things are accessible
Mhm.
to you. Right. But definitely last but not least, so while we're doing all this stuff, right now that tax season is the first wave of tax season is over, right? Hopefully you done got your taxes filed. You kind of know what you made. You've been thinking about goals. Now it's time to put some strategy in place, right? So GIP is honored to host the Grant Lab. So this is our very first live event. We're actually going to be having it in Nashville because we're GIP is extending our reach to Nashville and Atlanta, right? So I told Victoria, we once we do this,
Come on, yes.
we coming down there, right? And so the purpose of the Grant Lab is to provide practical, hands-on knowledge,
Mhm.
right? We basically gonna take that Hello Skip website and we're gonna walk you all the way through that thing. And by the time we finish, you're gonna have everything you need to apply for grants on a consistent basis. We're gonna talk about a lot of stuff that we talked about tonight. In addition to like the money part of it, right? We're gonna focus on that as well, but we're gonna spend the majority of our time in Hello Skip, making sure that you're set up for success. Okay, so you're gonna get some real time one-on-one with me. It's gonna be in a classroom setting. I'm a veteran teacher. That's my trade. I was 20 years in the game. I'm gonna have that room set up. So I'm walking around. Y'all gonna be focused and getting your stuff together. Right. So it is going to be June the 7th. Right. So we are 31 days away from the Grant Lab. It's going to be at the Alchemy Cafe in Nashville, Tennessee. Our standard rate is going to be $397, but if you do the VIP access, not only will you have access to the Grant Lab, but you'll have access to the entire GIP team for the rest of 2025 through GIP Academy. Because it's one thing to be set up for grants, but we got to make sure those numbers stay tight, right? So make sure that you go to gipfinancials.com. You go to the menu, click on grants. You're going to see the little video of the grant lab, all that good stuff, right? But that's not the only thing because Victoria got an event coming up at the end of this month. So, Victoria, what you got going on?
Yes, yes, yes. So at the end of the month, we're doing what's called a grant readiness blueprint. The biggest thing that we see when we're looking at grant applications is that you don't have the data and metrics in place to provide a successful application. So we're having a $50 webinar just to walk you through what it looks like to use your data. We're going through examples. You're going to get downloadables as we go through the webinar, just to look at what makes a successful application when it comes to data and metrics. And we originally geared this towards nonprofit organizations, but just know one of the things that we do for whoever applies is we're looking you up. We're looking up your organization, we're looking up your small business just to make sure we're fully prepared for the people that we have joining. So don't let that just deter you. If you're a for-profit entity, we're here to help. Because just like you all are community based, I'm community based too. Even though I'm a for profit entity, right? I am community based, meaning the goal is to get out information, as much information as possible. Sonia has the whole grant lab, and believe you me, if you're going through a live grant application, it would definitely cost more to work with somebody one on one. So she's doing that for you all too, as a way to give back to her community as well. And then also, if you do want to schedule a consultation with me, it is absolutely free, and we can talk through some of the questions that you might have had that you weren't able to get through today. And it's 30 minutes, 30 to 45, absolutely free for us to just talk.
Wonderful, right? So we are here just not to give you the fish. We teaching you how to fish,
Right.
right? Because we want to make sure that you get a proper return on investment, right? And because these services are ordinary and necessary for your business, they are qualified tax deductions. I just want to say that out loud as well. Okay, so you're not missing anything there. Okay, gotcha. So you got the grant lab, you got Victoria with a consultation, the grant readiness blueprint, right? We will make sure these things are not only accessible but also affordable for you as well. So Victoria, how can everybody get in touch with you?
Simply by clicking one of those links, it takes you to my website. On my website has my information as well. Or you can follow me on Instagram at D and V Consulting. That's DANDV, CONSULTING, DNV Consulting.
All right. So I hope that you guys had a blast hanging out with us. Again, you already know what GIP is. On YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the places, website, all that good stuff. So just make sure that you connect with us on your favorite platform. So again, once the recording is good and buffered out and all that good stuff, I will make sure to post it. I'll have it posted definitely by Friday. So just give me a little patience. My goal is to have it posted tomorrow, but we'll shall see, depending on what the day looking like. But one last round. If anybody has any questions, comments, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand. You can unmute. We would love your feedback and know how you felt about the class and any takeaways that you've had from the class. We made history. This is the first Q&A we've been on for a while.
Oh, I feel okay. I feel special out here. We doing some things, y'all.
Some things, right? So thank you, Tina. I see the heart there. I really appreciate that.
You've been
All
showing love
right.
the whole class. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So if all heart and
Wanda.
wait a minute, we got some stuff in the chat.
Thank you, Cassandra. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just said they
Oh,
love the
thank
class. You know,
you.
they love you. Yeah. You do your thing.
All right, well, we like Power Rangers. So we get
Look,
it's morphin' time.
I'm done.
Don't play with it. That's how it goes, right? You got to be aligned with folks that like everybody eats. There's no turf wars here.
Right.
Turf wars at all. So when we get on here, we are all here to help the village, right? That's how we complement each other, right?
This is
So
that.
thank y'all so very much. So all hearts and minds clear. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up. And again, thank y'all so much. And if you have any questions in the interim, message us. We're both on Instagram. And let me see, Tina said, very informative. This is exactly what business
Mm-hmm.
and nonprofits needs. And all that getting, come on, scripture. We're gonna get some
All things
understanding.
get understanding.
Yes, that's right.
And once you have it, steward over it.
Oh,
So
there you
y'all
go.
have the understanding, you know.
And she
Go
just
out
slid,
there.
she just slid that in there like that. Get yourself.
Oh, we talking about the
Yep,
Bible. Okay, I thought,
that's right. Yep. I'm just saying. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, y'all have a great one. And we will see you next Thursday. We're having a podcast episode with Miss Tori Jones. We have an online community called GIP Academy. And so we're interviewing Tori because she's our very first GIP Academy member. And so she's going to be talking about her experience and the outcomes with GIP Academy. Okay. All right. So y'all have
Sonia,
a
I'm sorry. I had
yes.
an
Yes.
offline question. It's Tina.
Hey, Miss Taylor.
Hello. My offline question. Please forgive me. I
Oh,
was
go
going
ahead.
through your website, and you have like courses, like every month, and
Mhm.
so I was a little. I'm an educator, and I'm very smart, but I was struggling with how to sign up for that. But we can talk offline about it.
Yes, ma'am. So just to those monthly courses are part of the GIP Academy.
Okay.
And so if you enroll in GIP Academy, of course, those courses are part of the membership. But if you
Okay.
just want to come in and take a peek at what we're doing in there, you can pay the $47 as a drop-in fee and
There's a
come hang
drop in.
out with
Okay.
us. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's why we got the whole schedule out so you can see what you're paying for.
Yes, yes, yes. Since I saw something in July that caught my eye, but
Okay.
yes, definitely want to pop in and see. But anyway, that's offline. Had nothing to do with grants, but I want to.
No
No
problem. That's
problem.
what
That's
we're
cool.
here for.
All right. Thank you.
No problem, love.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. All right, y'all. Well, y'all have a good night, and we will see you guys hopefully next week on the next episode. Y'all take care.